Thank you very much, Rebbetzin Ricky, and Yerushalayim to you for doing the spectacular work that you do. It's unbelievable. And the Rebbetzin should give you continued hatzlacha, and you should go mechayil al chayil. And also to the women who come, you can't have ein malach below right? So a person can try to do their best, but if people, it's when people participate that makes it so special. So Yerushalayim to all of you who are here all the time, not only today, but all the time. Okay, our subject today is harmonizing with life. Now, I was thinking about this because all of us have a great desire, more and more, as we move along in a world and a life that's very challenging, perhaps more so than it ever was before. I know that I speak to my sister on a regular basis. My sister is Salem Rebbetzin. She lives in Williamsburg. She's a Hasidic Rebbetzin of note, a fabulous person who devotes her life to alleviating the pain and suffering of others. And we get on the phone and on a regular basis, and she will share with me, obviously, names don't matter. She doesn't know my world, I don't know her world. I live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. She's in Williamsburg, New York. But the pain that we see everywhere, all the tzaras, whether it's health issues, whether shidduchim, tzar gidul banim, shalom bayis issues, conflicted relationships, whatever it is, and the conversation, without fail, always ends with the only answer is that Mashiach should come. That's the only answer. We try, we do our part and trying to help people out, but for the most part, Mashiach is the only one who could really take care of things. So, you know, we talk about the fact, obviously, when people are going through things, we know that the Rebbetzin Shalom is the ultimate tov u'meitiv. He does everything for our good, and everything is a blessing in disguise. But we say to each other, you know, it would be wonderful to get to a point in life where the Rebbetzin Shalom brings the world to a place where we will be able to enjoy blessings that are not in disguise. You know, kind of things that we can see, Gomel Chasadim Tovim. So everything a chesed, but Tovim, that we should see that they're Tovim. And that, of course, will be something that will happen with the advent of Mashiach. So, you know, when I'm always reminded of what my little granddaughter, for Malkala, she was maybe 3-4 years old, she was going to Gam. And they taught her the concept of Gamzu L'Tova. And she went home to her family. She has siblings, and every time something happened, she said, Gamzu L'Tova, you know, don't cry, it's Gamzu L'Tova. Whatever Hashem does is for the good, Gamzu L'Tova. So one day, she happened to fall down, and she started crying. And everybody surrounded her and said, Malkala, what happened with Gamzu L'Tova? So she says, that doesn't mean you can't say ouch. You can say ouch and then realize that it's Gamzu L'Tova. So we hear a lot of the ouch. So much, even though we are maminim, b'nei maminim, and we know that Rebbetzin Shalom is good and everything is for the good, but it's still, we all have times when we say ouch. So we want the Mashiach to come. And we know the Geula, the redemption, we wait for that every day. And Korva l'nafshi Geula, David HaMelech says, we want Geula, the Geula has to begin Korva l'nafshi. It has to begin with me. The collective Yeshua, the collective Geula has to begin with a personal Geula. Like they say, the change I want to see has to begin with me. I want change, the change has to begin with me. So we want Mashiach to come, and all of these Farim tell us that this is the final push in Chevlei Leida, of that era that will be born, and this is the final push in giving birth to that time. And we know Yeshua's Hashem is Keheref Ayin. So the Rambam in his Ikrim, we know that he writes, Ani Mamin. We're supposed to say one of the things, the basics of our faith is Ani Mamin b'muna shalema b'vias hamashiach v'af al pi sheyismameyam kol ze achakelo. And the Rambam says it's not enough to say Ani Mamin, but it has to also be in kol ze achakelo, the second part. Not only am I Mamin, not only do I have faith, but I have to be waiting for him, anticipating his coming, achakelo. And the interesting thing is, when you look at the word achake, what does achake mean? The root word is chaka. And we find in Iyov of 40:25, it says, Ko tamshich levioson b'chaka. You will pull in the levioson b'chaka. Chaka means a hook. Pulling it in with a hook. So when Rambam talks about Ani Mamin, that it's not enough to be Mamin, to believe, to have faith, but there has to be a chakelo, what he's saying is that we have to be pulling Mashiach, so to speak, bringing him in, hooking him in. And the question is, how do we do that? So there's a wonderful word, and I think one of the Rebbe said it, I believe it might have been the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who said that when Yosef HaTzadik revealed himself, so it says that Binyamin and Yosef fell on each other's necks, right? And it says that Binyamin cried because of Mishkan Shiloh that's going to be in the territory of Yosef that will be destroyed, and Yosef cried because of the two Batei HaMikdash that are going to be in the Chalka of Binyamin, and they're going to be destroyed. So when you think about it, there's a very obvious question. Why did each one cry about that which will be destroyed in the other one's Chalik? Yosef, why don't you cry about Mishkan Shiloh that's going to be destroyed, that's in your Chalik? And Binyamin, cry for the two Batei HaMikdash that are going to be destroyed, that are going to be in your Chalik. Why are you crying for that which is going to happen in the other one's Chalik? And he says a very, very insightful, he makes an insightful comment. He says, when the Churban is in another person's Chalik, you have to empathize, you have to cry with them, you have to feel for them. But when the Churban, whether it's a Churban Abayis, a collective, or whether it's a personal Churban that we see, that's in our own life, then you don't cry. You get up and you go do something. You go build. You go take care of that Churban. You don't sit around and cry for that Churban. If it's in my territory, if it's in my life, if it's in my Dalit Amas, then what needs to be done is I've got to pick myself up out of this Churban and move on to reconstruct my life. Whether it's a life where there's Shalom Bayis problems, or Tzar Gidul Banim, or whatever it is that Rahman al-Tzlan, the Churban, everybody deals with situations like this. So it's not a time to sit and cry over it. It's a time that we have to do something about it. When it's in the other person's life, then we empathize and we cry for their tzaras. So along these lines, I saw a comment that what the sin, the chet of Adam and Chava was that they ate of Eitz Hadas Tovara, right? Eitz Hadas, the tree of knowledge of good and bad. And one of the commentaries says that what happened here is that they experienced the Eitz Hadas, but it remained a das. They knew. They had the knowledge of what was Tov and Ra, but that knowledge never went from their head to their heart to their deeds. It remained in their head. It was Eitz Hadas. They just knew. They knew, but it didn't filter down to their deeds, to what was they needed to do about it. So every person is, in their own life, if we're going to harmonize with life and make Mashiach come with that which we're going to do, then we have to figure out what it is that we need to do. And this question is always asked. So what's my tafkid? What am I supposed to do? So the Sfarim tell us that we're all born chaser. A human being is we're born deficient. And the point is that the Sfarim say, and among them, Reb Tzadok HaKohen says, that we have to identify our chesronos, our defects, our shortcomings, and we have to work with those weaknesses and figure out how to use them to benefit ourselves. We have to figure out what it is that derails us. The Satan certainly has a full-time job. The Satan, which is the lesser part of ourselves, comes to us on a moment-to-moment basis and tells us, look at this, look at you, look what a deficient human being you are. Look at, you're prone to anger, you're selfish, you're prideful, and on and on and on, the Satan tells us. And we need to understand and recognize that that is the sound, it's the voice of the Satan, and not to be fooled by it. Because the greatest mission in our lives is like a great thinker said, when the Satan points out our deficiencies, that our mission, our tafkid, is being whispered in our ear. That's when the tafkid is being whispered in our ear. Then it's when we know what our work has to be. So we know that we're called an Am Kashei Oref, we're a stubborn people. And stubbornness, generally speaking, is not considered a great, wonderful quality. We know we experience stubbornness when we have little Yasala who refuses to put on his coat on a cold day, or a little Moishala who refuses to toe the line and we sit there arguing with him. So we know what stubbornness is about and how it could be a negative quality. However, we also know that Am Kashei Oref, the reason that we've endured and we exist as a people this far and this long is because we are an Am Kashei Oref. We're stubborn. We're not going to let go of that which we believe in. We've gone through holocausts and pogroms and all kinds of awful things in our history, and we've held on to that which we believe because we're an Am Kashei Oref. So an Am Kashei Oref could be a negative, but an Am Kashei Oref can be converted into something that's very important and very special. So just to give you a little story of channeling things in the right direction. So on one occasion, I was speaking at an AJAC convention out in America, and I was giving a talk to the women, and a gentleman came over to me and he asked me if he could sit in on the talk. Well, it was geared to women. So I said to him, I'm really not in charge. Go ask the director and see if it's okay with him. If it's okay with him, it's okay with me. So he got permission. He was sitting in the back. And I started talking. I was talking about my father, Zichrono Livracha, and the impact that he made on my life. And I said that my father was the Foltechena Rav. And after I was done with the talk, he comes over and he was literally shaking. He says, your father is Foltechena Rav? He says, I owe him such a great debt of gratitude. Can you tell me where he's buried? I want to go out to the cemetery and I want to thank him for everything, for what he did for me. And he said to me, let me tell you my story. He says, I was a young bacher, I was learning Yeshiva Torah V'das, and I was restless. I had a lot of pieces inside of me going in many directions. So he says what I would do is I would cut class often when I heard that there was a gadol who passed away and there was a hesped going to be given. And I wanted to hear how the person would present a hesped. I enjoyed listening to people do the kind of creative things that they do. So he said, I went to a particular levaya, and it turned out that your father was the speaker. He was the person being mastered, the individual. So my father happened to be a world-class speaker, the likes of which never was and won't be. This is not a biased opinion, but this is really, he was magnificent. So my father got up there, he said, and he was maspid this person, a gadol. He said he had never heard the likes of it. So after it was over, he made his way. People wouldn't let him have access to him. They took him away to another room. My father had severe heart condition. They were afraid that it was going to be hard on his heart, so they sequestered him in another room. But he pushed his way through, and he came in, and he said, I have to tell you, I've never heard anything like what you delivered. So my father said to him, if so, tell me what I said. And he said, I began to tell him, almost verbatim, word for word, what he had said, and he began to cry. Tears were streaming down his cheek. And when I finished, he said to me, Taya Kind, my darling child, what do you want to do with your life? What are your aspirations? What do you want to be when you grow up? And he said, you have to know what my father looked like. My father was this Hasidic Rebbe, a long beard and the whole garb, and like awe-inspiring kind of individual. So he said to my father, I want to be an actor. And he figured my father would say to him, Shegats, what, you're a shegitz and this and that, leave me alone, get out of here. My father looked at him and he said, Taya Kind, what do you like? You want to be in the theater? What would you like to present? And my father said, and this fellow said to him, his name is actually Nachum Stilleman, some of you may know him. And he said to my father, I love Shalom Aleichem. So my father said to him, okay, so give me a rendition of Shalom Aleichem. So he said, and I gave him a rendition of the piece that I related to the most, the piece I loved. And again, there were tears streaming down your father's face. At the conclusion, my father said to him, Taya Kind, my darling young man, he says, you should definitely be an actor. But you should be an actor on the Yerushalayim stage. Be an actor, but do it in that context, the context of what the Rebbetzin would want you to do, but definitely be an actor. He said he got his marching orders. He said at that point he actually became the top fundraiser. I think almost all buildings of yeshivas and whatever, all moisters, are the ones that he raised funds for and built. He said that's what he used his skill, the skill of acting and presenting and such. He used it on the Rebbetzin stage. So there are such things like being an actor, which wouldn't be the thing that we would look for for our children to aspire to. But even acting talents can be channeled in the right direction. So the important thing is that we all feel locked oftentimes. The pasuk says, when the brothers came to Mitzrayim, it says, Vayosef asam el mishmar shloshes yamim, that Yosef put them into a mishmar, into a prison. Rashi says, Beis Asurim, for 3 days. Then he said to them, Im keinem atem, achechem echad yeyaser bebeis mishmarchem. If you're innocent, one of your brothers should remain bebeis mishmarchem. And one of the Sfarim says, it should have said bebeis hamishmar. Why mishmarchem? And the Sefer says, b'derech havoda, that what it's saying is that we all have prisons. He said to brothers, you're languishing in this prison, in your own mind. The thoughts that you have, the thoughts about what your brother did to you, and the thoughts, all the kind of negative thinking that is a product of your own, of your own creation. That's mishmarchem, the prison that we all create about things that aren't necessarily so, but it becomes our reality. Once we think it becomes our reality, and those are the prisons in which we live. So he said, divest yourself of those prisons. And for all of us, it's true as well. We all have notions about what we can do, what we can't do. We do this number on ourselves that we're not worthy, and we can't talk to Rebbetzin Feige because why would you want to hear from somebody like me, a blemished, flawed human being? We all have these thoughts. These are the prisons in which we all live. And the point is that even though we all have prisons, we have deficiencies, for sure. But the question is, with the deficiencies that we have in the prison we create, as somebody put it, do we look at the bars or do we look past the bars? We all have bars in our life. We all have things that we wish would be different. But the point is, the challenge is to look beyond the bars to what we can do with our lives, and not to look at the bars that constrict us, whether those are thoughts in our interpersonal relationship, marriages, workplace, whatever they are. These are erroneous notions that circumscribe the quality of our lives, the prisons of our own making, our perceived limitations. So this is, and even when we do fail, and failure tends to confirm our worst fears, that it's important. Again, Reb Tzadok HaKohen has a wonderful vart. He says, when you look at Yosef HaTzadik versus David HaMelech, and we look at, they were both challenged in the same way. Yosef HaTzadik was challenged by Eshes Potiphar, and David HaMelech by Bathsheba. We all know the end of those stories. Yosef HaTzadik succeeded, he triumphed with flying colors, as difficult as a challenge as it was. And David HaMelech succumbed. He was not triumphant. And yet, we see that it's David HaMelech who wrote Sefer Tehillim. It's David HaMelech from whom Mashiach will come, not Yosef HaTzadik. So Reb Tzadok HaKohen says that David HaMelech's triumph was far greater than that of Yosef HaTzadik. Why? Because David HaMelech fell through. He didn't meet the challenge that he was presented with, but his triumph was that he picked himself up and he moved on. That he didn't allow despair to claim him. He didn't allow himself to say, well, now I'm a loser. I'm a failure. Yes, I sinned, but I'm not a sinner. Yes, I failed, but I'm not a failure. It's very important to distinguish between those two. Because we sin on occasion, that's a human condition. We all will. But that doesn't make sinners of us. We fail. All of us fail. But that doesn't mean that we're failures. So David HaMelech picked himself up and moved on to write Sefer Tehillim and moved on to be David HaMelech, the progenitor of Mashiach. And the point is that it's not Yosef HaTzadik who's relevant to our lives, because none of us are going to be called, whatever, HaTzadik. Sarah HaTzadekis, Rivka HaTzadekis. We all have our moments. But David HaMelech, the ability to fail, the ability to sin, and to pick ourselves up and move on, that we can all do. So David HaMelech is the model for us. And and the point is that that's what the Rebbetzin Feige wants from us. You know that our name Yisrael comes from Kisarisa em Elokim ve'im Anoshim vatuchal. And one of the Mefarshim asks, you struggled when that epic battle took place between Yaakov Avinu and the Sar of Esau. So they struggled, and at the end, Yaakov Avinu triumphed. And the Malach says to him, the Malach of Esau says to him, Ki sarisa im Elokim, you fought, you struggled with God and with a human being, and with human beings, Vatuchala, you were triumphant. So the question is, so why aren't we called B'nai Tuchal? Because we were triumphant. Why are we called B'nai Yisrael? Where Yisrael comes from the word sarisa, you struggled. And the answer is because Hashem values the struggle. Success, triumphs are in the hands of Yerushalayim, but the struggle is what we're all about, to struggle. And oftentimes what we struggle for and what we aspire to seems beyond our reach. And in these sedras we learn about Basya. What does it say? It says that Vatishlach es amasa. She sent out, when she saw a basket in the river, she sent out amasa. One of the understandings is it means her maid. She sent her maid, her amma, to go get the basket. But another interpretation is she sent out her arm. It was beyond her reach in the middle of the river. No way her arm could reach that little basket. But she put forth her rishtadlus. She put forth, and all we have to do is indicate where it is that we want to go, and then the Rebbetzin Feige helps us get there. So of course, when it comes now to these sedras, and we look at all the nisim and the flows of Donishlam wrought on behalf of Klal Yisrael, the 10 plagues, the splitting of the sea, and all these wonderful things, and we say to ourselves, if only, Rebbetzin Feige, bring about a nace. If only, if you would perform a miracle on my behalf, on our behalf, it would become so much simpler. I would see your presence manifest in my life. If only, if only. The truth is that if only we had miracles, miracles would not help us. Miracles, we know that Ra'asa Shivcha al Hayam, Mashalo Ra'a Buzi, Yecheskel ben Buzi. A Shivcha, a maidservant, saw miracles by Yamsuf, by the splitting of the Yam, that even Yecheskel the prophet didn't see. So the question is, where is their Sfarim? Yecheskel wrote a sefer, the Sefer Yecheskel. Where are the Sfarim of the Shivcha that was on the Yam? When she saw these great nisim, greater than those that Yecheskel beheld. He saw the Masa Mekava. He saw the workings of the heavens. So if she saw greater nisim than that, give me her sefer. Where is it? And the answer that they give is, when we have a momentary flash, when there's a nace that we see, but it's not something that we earned by virtue of hard work, of climbing one step, one rung after another to achieve it, to climb the ladder till we get to a point where we're worthy of miracles, that miracle doesn't stay with us. It's just a flash. And just as quickly as it comes, it leaves us. So the Shivcha al Hayam wasn't privy to, she was not one who could write this for him, because what it requires is sarisa. It requires the struggle. It requires moving step by step, engaging all the challenges that we experience, overcoming some and failing others, but picking ourselves up and moving onwards. That's what it requires in order to be worthy of miracles that can be sustained. And of course, all of us, if we opened our eyes, we would see miracles. We would see miracles daily in our lives. This one of Mefarshim says, "Hasner ba'er ba'esh ve'nenu ukol," that the bush was burning and it wasn't consumed. And they asked the question: this burning bush that Moshe Rabbeinu saw, why didn't anybody else stop and see that this was miraculous? Here was a bush that kept burning and burning and wasn't consumed. It didn't get burnt out. So stop and take a look what's going on here. But it was Moshe Rabbeinu who stopped and looked. He saw that there was a great miracle with a great message here. Or Avram Avinu, they tell us, Avram Avinu, Vayomer Hashem el Avraham. They said, you think that Avram was the first person that Hashem tried speaking to? Hashem sent out a message across the world. And it was only Avram who responded, who listened to the message. So there are so many things in our lives that if we open our eyes, and that's one of the things that we need to keep in mind when we say the bracha, Pokeach Ivrim, Hashem, you let the blind see. Doesn't mean just literally, does mean that too. But let me see. This, a woman wrote this beautiful piece. She said, days pass and years vanish, and we walk. Is this a message? And we walk sightless among miracles. Lord, fill our eyes with seeing and our minds with knowing. Let there be moments when your presence like lightning illuminates the darkness in which we walk. Help us to see wherever we gaze that the bush burns unconsumed, and we, clay touched by God, will reach out for holiness and exclaim in wonder, how filled with awe is this place, and we did not know it. So this is the tefillah we say to Rebbeinu Shalom, please open my eyes, let me see that which can be seen. But we're busy with if onlys, and if only is a really terrible phrase. Rabbi Wolfson in New York, and I told some of my women this, Rabbi Wolfson said that there was a tzaddik who had a dream, and he saw a malach. And he said to the malach, he said, you know what? This is an endless vicious cycle. He said, we're sent out to this world with a tafkid. There's something we need to do. And then we come back after 120 years, and they tell us, you know what? You didn't fulfill your mission. You got to go back again. So they send us back again, and we're clueless as to what we have to do. And after 120 years again, we go back after our demise, and we come up and then they say, you didn't do what you were supposed to do. You got to go back again. And it's an endless, endless cycle. What's going to be the story here? Ein l'davar sof. So the angel said to him, you know what? I don't have an answer for you. We got to go to a higher angel. And he sent him to a higher angel. And the higher angel, he repeats his story, and the higher angel says, I don't have an answer for you. I'll have to send you to my supervising angel. And he sent him to the next higher up, and the angel says, I don't have an answer for you. You'll have to go directly to the Rebbetzin Feige. So he comes before the Rebbetzin Feige and he presents his story. Rebbetzin Feige, what's going to be? Over and over and over again, we go to the same thing. We're sent down. We're supposed to achieve something. We don't achieve it. We're back again and sent down again. What's going to be? And the Rebbetzin Feige said, all I want for my children is they should have emunah and bitachon. Okay, sounds like simple enough. But he said, what does that mean, emunah and bitachon? How does it manifest itself? So he said, if my children would only eliminate 2 words from their vocabulary, actually in Yiddish it's 1 word, volt. Ob se volt no gewein, volt, those of you who know Yiddish. In English, it's if only. If only. If they would eliminate if only those 2 words from their vocabulary, where they would not say if only you had a different husband, if only my children were like the next door person's children, if only I was rich, if only I was beautiful, if only I was young, if only, the if onlys go on forever and ever. That if they would eliminate that and understand, the basic understanding behind that is emunah b'tachon. Whatever I have is tailor-made for me, is geared to me and to my tafkid in this world. So if we were able to eliminate when we find ourselves saying if only, to say, okay, I want to stop the cycle, so I'm not going. If only, not if only, I know that what I have is what I'm supposed to have. That this is relevant to my neshama, and whatever anybody else has is not relevant. So all of us are very well equipped, us women are very well equipped to handle the challenges that we're given. Because as women, you all know that we have a bina yesera. We have what we might call in this day and age emotional intelligence. We have an intuitive sense of things. My father, Zichron Livracha, the Hasidic Rebbe that I described before, He used to say to us all the time, he used to say, Kinderlich, my dear children, come round, I want to tell you something. Listen very carefully to what your mother is saying now, because in 3 weeks it's going to be my opinion. He really appreciated the fact that my mother had a grip on situations and had an intuitive sense of things, where things were, the kind of which he didn't have. And it was not unusual for him, as it's not unusual for my husband's Zangazin, that when there's a middle of a counseling situation or the beginning of a counseling, my husband will say to me, can you please sit in, because I need a quick reading of the situation. Eventually, he says, I'll figure it out, but it might take me too long. He says, if you sit in, you're going to have that emotional intelligence where you get a sense of where things really are at. There's somebody put it beautifully, they said, the heart has reason that no reason can begin to understand. The heart has reason that no reason can begin to understand. And this we see in the Torah, which is beautifully described. Do we still have a few minutes? Yeah, okay. V'asu li migdash v'shachanti b'socham v'asher kol ish asher tidvenu libo tikhu li es trumasi. So it says v'asu li migdash. Make for me a migdash. A tabernacle, a Beis HaMikdash, v'shachanti b'socham, and I will dwell in their midst. Interesting, in their midst, in the midst of Klal Yisrael, not in it so much. V'asher kol ish, and every person asher tidvenu libo, that his heart wants to donate. Libo, again, it repeats the word asher tidvenu libo, that his heart will want to contribute. Libo techeli trumasi. His heart you should take for my truma. And the Zerah HaKodesh says that this was the reason that libo is repeated, is because it's hard to imagine for all of us, if we look at it realistically, how is it that a Yerushalayim, a God who is infinite, who is Ein Sof, who is unlimited, will come and dwell in a structure, in a physical limited structure? How can a physical limited structure contain an infinite being? How is that possible? And the Zerah HaKodesh explains it. He says that the Chachmei Lev, at the time when they were asking for donations, when they asked for donations and people would come and give, and these Chachmei Lev would get so excited, and they would show them where in the Beis HaMikdash their piece, their donation will find itself. They were so excited, they went back and they brought more. And then they saw again, they got so excited, they brought more until they had nothing to bring. And at that point, all they had left was a tshuka, a yearning, a desire to be able to contribute to the house of the Yerushalayim. And he says, the Zerah HaKodesh says, it is in that desire, that infinite desire, that the Yerushalayim resides. That is where he resides, in that infinite desire. And that's true. The Mikdash, the Mishkan, today is really first and foremost our own person. And we want the Yerushalayim to be able to reside within us. And what it takes is, more than anything else, the working of the heart. It takes yearning. It takes emotional intelligence. And it takes, of course, we need to know how we're able to do this. And one of the wonderful understandings when Rebbetzin Feige says to Yaakov Avinu, Anochi imach. So he was saying to Yaakov Avinu, I'm going to be with you. Literally be with you. I'm going to accompany you wherever you go. But then it also, what he was saying is Anochi. The Anochi Hashem Elokecha, the I need, the Hashem, is going to be imach. There's going to be an investiture of a Rebbeinu Shalom in each and every one of us. And that's what's going to help us manage through life, through this Golus years. So it's Anochi imach is two levels. Taka be, Hashem promised to be with us through thick and thin, through dark times, but he also promised us that he's going to be part and parcel of our being. And this, we had a Baba Babush in the family. She was, I don't know if she was Divrei Chaim's daughter, but anyway, she was a very great tzaddikus. Towards the end of her life, she had old age dementia. And she came, and at one point, somebody came in, somebody, was very familiar to her. And she said to them, "Ich weiß nicht, wer ich bin, ich weiß nicht, wie ich bin, aber ich weiß, wem ich bin." Meaning, I don't know who I am, I don't know where I am, but I know to whom I belong. This was the Anochi Imach, that piece of the Rebbeinu Shalom that's inside of us, that is always there, and that's what she related to. She didn't know her surroundings any longer, but one thing she was sure of, she knew that she belonged to the Rebbeinu Shalom. So for all of us, we need to cultivate this primary relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom. Small steps. All of you are doing it. You come to learn more and more, and to infuse your life with good things, and to know that davening a little bit more, petitioning to the Rebbeinu Shalom to help us relate to it, to help us have this yearning, to help us have this chukka. And we need to know that all of these things that we do, we start small steps, not overhauling our lives. They call it in psychology the butterfly effect. Butterfly effect is that when we do a little something, it looks so insignificant, but the energy that puts out into the world changes things. If we do it here in Eretz Yisrael and Milwaukee, they'll feel the effects of the small steps that we take. It's called the butterfly effect. If a butterfly flutters his wings here, then the effects of that fluttering is felt everywhere. So we start with small steps. We set ourselves up for success, not for failure. The other piece of it, so that's our relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom. The other piece of it is, you all know that before davening, we're supposed to say, before I talk to you, Rebbeinu Shalom, I'm committing myself to V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, to loving my fellow Jew, to love all other people. And Abraham Maslow, the father of psychology, said that later in life, he first thought that the most important thing in life was self-realization. But as time went on, he realized that self-transcendence is far greater. To transcend one's own needs, to transcend one's own concerns, to transcend selfishness that comes automatically to human beings, and to look at another and see what I can do for another. So that's greater, he says, than self-realization. And just telling you the power of reaching out to others. It's a very short piece. This person writes, I was sitting on a beach one summer day, watching two children, a boy and a girl, playing in the sand. They were hard at work building an elaborate sandcastle by the water's edge, with gates and towers and moats and internal passages. Just when they had nearly finished their project, a big wave came along and knocked it down, reducing it to a heap of wet sand. I expected the children to burst into tears, devastated with what had happened to their hard work. But they surprised me. Instead, they ran up the shore, away from the water, laughing and holding hands, and sat down to build another castle. I realized that they had taught me an important lesson. All the things in our lives, all the complicated structures we spend so much time and energy creating, are built on sand. Only our relationships to other people endure. Sooner or later, the wave will come along and knock down what we have worked so hard to build up. When that happens, only the person who has somebody's hand to hold will be able to laugh. And that is such a great emes to that. It's so important. Somebody said that life in this world is, in our physical bodies, is like being consigned to solitary confinement. When we have relationships, at least somebody comes to visit us every once in a while. So holding hands, I won't go into how we can do that. We'll have to leave that for next time because my granddaughter here is giving me the sign that it's time to end. That's why granddaughters come in so handy. Besides the fact that she's giving me such adorable great-grandchildren. Okay, but you don't want me to go into that because we don't have that many hours. In any case, so we have these things, relationships with Rebbetzin Feige first, and with others is the hook. It's the chaka, it's the hook by which we can draw in and bring Mashiach. Achakelo b'chol yom yavo. And how do we do that? We say it uvnei Yerushalayim, goes on, uvnei osa b'karo b'yameinu binyan olam. B'yameinu, one of the commentaries says, we build it with our days, with what we do with our days, with all the moves we make in the right direction. That's the chaka, that's the hook by which we bring Mashiach. And all of us, let's hope. I can tell you that every morning when I read it by the Kabbanas where it says, V'ato b'avosenu harabim charav beis hamikdash. The beis hamikdash was destroyed. Ein lanu lo kohen b'avadaso. We don't have a kohen doing his work. We lament v'lo Levi b'duchano, and not a Levi who's duchening. V'lo Yisrael b'mamado, and Yisrael in their place by the beis hamikdash. And we go Yehi Ratzon. Let it already, the time should come where we should have, by harmonizing with life and doing what we need to do, knowing Hashem loves us, and engaging in upgrading the two essential relationships in our lives, that with the Rebbetzin Feige and that with us, is that we will be zoicha to bring in with b'chaka, ni mamen b'muna shalema, v'afal pi sheyismamea, achakelo, achakelo. We're waiting. Let it happen soon and I think.